In verse 12 now, we're told that Isaac sowed in the land. Now, Isaac was not a farmer. He was a shepherd, like his father before him. And so here, Isaac makes kind of a career change. He adds a second career to shepherding. He now becomes a farmer. And I guess, you do what you have to do to provide for your family. And Isaac starts farming in a famine. Now, most often in the ancient world, famines were the result of droughts or a lack of rain. And for Isaac now, he's going to venture into farming in the midst of a famine or in the midst of a drought. And to do that, of course, that takes a lot of faith to start farming in the midst of a drought, because if God doesn't send the rain, sowing is pointless. In Psalm 126, listen to what it says in Psalm 126. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. The psalmist describes sowing seed with tears and weeping. The idea is you're crying out to God as you're sowing, because you know if God is not in it, it's going to fail. And that's the life of faith. That's what real faith is. And walking by faith is attempting things that if God is not in it, it's going to fail. Without God in it, it's not going to succeed. You can't make it happen. You can't work it and make it happen. And for Isaac, that's what he does here. He starts farming in a drought, in a famine, and if God doesn't show up, it's going to fail. And God does show up. God shows up in a big way for Isaac. Verse 12 says, look what it says, the same year Isaac reaped 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. Now, this is unimaginable success. And it's the first year. He just started this whole farming gig. And he's got tremendous success. If you remember in the Gospels, Jesus told the parable of the sower who sowed seed on different types of soil. And the seed that fell among the good soil, remember, it produced 30-fold, 60-fold, and even 100-fold. So, 30 and 60-fold is a tremendous yield. 100-fold, is just an incredibly large harvest. And Isaac has 100-fold harvest his first year out. Verse 12 ends by telling us, the Lord blessed Isaac. He sure did, in a big way. Now, if back in verse 3, God promised Isaac if he stayed in the promised land, instead of going to Egypt, God said, I will bless you. And the Lord has kept his promise to Isaac and blessed Isaac exceedingly abundantly above all Isaac could have ever thought or imagined. And listen, God has been faithful to us, hasn't he? God has kept his promises to us. Jesus said, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. Lo, I am with you always. He promised to be our shepherd and to provide for all of our needs. And here we are, the last Sunday of 2020, and God has been faithful and fulfilled his promises to us once again and got us through a very extraordinarily challenging year of 2020. We made it. We got through. God was faithful. And so verse 13 says, the man began to prosper, and he continued prospering until he became very prosperous. There's a progression to verse 13. Isaac's prosperity wasn't just a one-time thing. He didn't just get lucky that first year of farming. That first year was just the beginning of Isaac's prosperity. He began to prosper, he continued prospering, and he became very prosperous. And his prosperity wasn't just in farming. Look at verse 14. For he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds and a great number of servants. So he prospered in many different ways. But then look at the end of verse 14. So the Philistines, remember he's living in the area of the Philistines, they envied him. The Philistines were envious of Isaac's prosperity. They resented his success. They were envious of him. Now, envy is a sin, according to the Bible. Envy is listed as one of the works of the flesh in Galatians chapter 5. And there is a difference between jealousy, which is also a sin, by the way, jealousy and envy. They're different. Jealousy is wanting or desiring what someone else has. Oh, I wish I had that. That's really nice. That's jealousy. Envy is much worse than jealousy. Envy is wanting what someone else has and hating them for having it, and desiring to destroy what they have so they can't enjoy it, or take it from them so they can't have it any longer. The Philistines envied Isaac. They wanted to destroy his wealth and take it from him. So look at verse 15. Here's what they did. Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham, his father, and they had filled them with earth or dirt. In verse 16, so Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." Now, these verses here may seem pretty obscure, or they may seem irrelevant to us. Okay, so they filled in the wells with earth. Big deal. How is that relevant to my life? But these actually are some of the most important verses in the Bible, because they illustrate to us human nature. And human nature doesn't change. People today are the same as they were in Isaac's day. And these verses are very relevant for our day, especially our day, because they show us how people respond when other people become wealthier or more successful than them. How do you respond to people who excel you in wealth? How do you respond to people that are more successful than you, that are more prosperous materially than you? Do you admire their success? Do you admire them for their achievements and their hard work and their innovation? Do you celebrate their success? Do you try to emulate them and copy their success? Or do you envy them? Do you resent them for their success?